The non-canonical books in this article include biblical apocrypha and deuterocanonical books, pseudepigrapha, writings from Hellenistic and other non-biblical cultures, and lost works of known or unknown status. For the purposes of this article, a reference can mean direct quotations, paraphrases, or allusions, which in some cases are known only because they have been identified as such by ancient writers, or the citation of a work or author. Hebrew Bible references. The Hebrew Bible, also known as the Tanakh by Jews, and called the Old Testament by Christians, or the protocanonical books. The book of Joshua is mentioned in Joshua chapter 10 verse 13 and 2 Samuel chapter 1 verse 18. From the context in the book of Samuel, it is implied that it was a collection of poetry. Several books have claimed to be this lost text, but are widely discounted as pseudepigrapha. The Book of the Wars of the Lord, referenced at Numbers chapter 21 verse 14. A Book of Songs is referenced at 1 Kings chapter 8 verses 12 to 13. The Chronicles of the Kings of Israel and Chronicles of the Kings of Judah are mentioned in the books of Kings. They are said to tell of events during the reigns of Kings Jeroboam of Israel and Rehoboam of Judah, respectively. The Chronicles of the Kings of Israel is again mentioned in 1 Kings chapter 16 verse 20 regarding King Zimri, and many other times throughout 1 and 2 Kings. The Book of Shemaiah, and of Iddo the seer, is mentioned in the second book of Chronicles. Iddo was a seer who lived during the reigns of Solomon, Rehoboam, and Abia. His deeds were recorded in this book, which has been completely lost to history, save for its title. However, it is interesting to note that Zechariah was the son of Iddo, but this was likely not the same Iddo. The manner of the kingdom, referenced at 1 Samuel chapter 10 verse 25. The Acts of Solomon, referenced at 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 41. The Annals of King David, referenced at 1 Chronicles chapter 27 verse 24. The Book of Samuel the Seer, also called Samuel the Seer or the Acts of Samuel the Seer, which could be the same as 1 and 2 Samuel, referenced at 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 29. The Book of Nathan the Prophet, also called Nathan the Prophet or the Acts of Nathan the Prophet or History of Nathan the Prophet, referenced at 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 29, and also 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verse 29. The Book of Gad the Seer, referenced at 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 29. The prophecy of Ahijah might be a reference to 1 Kings chapter 14 verses 2 to 18. Referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verse 29. The Book of the Kings of Judah and Israel, referenced in 2 Chronicles chapter 16 verses 11, 2 Chronicles chapter 27 verse 7 and 2 Chronicles chapter 32 verse 32, might be the same as 1 and 2 Kings. The Book of Jehu could be a reference to 1 Kings chapter 16 verses 1 to 7, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 20 verse 34. The story of the Book of Kings, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 24 verse 27. The Acts of Uzziah, also called the book by the prophet Isaiah, perhaps the same as the book of Isaiah, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 26 verse 22. The vision of Isaiah, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 32 verse 32. The Acts of the Kings of Israel, also called the Acts and Prayers of Manasseh, may be identical to the Book of the Kings of Israel above, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 33 verse 18. The Sayings of the Seers, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 33 verse 19. The Laments for Josiah, also called Lamentations. This event is recorded in the existing Book of Lamentations, referenced at 2 Chronicles chapter 35 verse 25. The Chronicles of King Ahasuerus, referenced at Esther chapter 2 verse 23, Esther chapter 6 verse 1, Esther chapter 10 verse 2, and Nehemiah chapter 12 verse 23. New Testament references. Nestle's Greek New Testament lists some 132 New Testament passages that appear to be verbal allusions to paracanonical books. Pagan authors quoted or alluded to. Menander, ties 218. Epimenides. Paul introduced another quotation from Epimenides by calling him a prophet of the Cretans. See Epimenides' paradox. Non-canonical books quoted or alluded to. Book of Enoch. Epistle to the Laodiceans. Life of Adam and Eve. A lost section of the Assumption of Moses. Martyrdom of Isaiah.